Hello, everyone. Good morning. Good Saturday. Once again, this is part 14 from a series of exploratory dialogues at the intersection between psychotherapy, somatic processing, trauma work, addiction, and non-dual awakening teachings. Mihai Algiu and my guest and mentor and friend, Scott Kiloby. Welcome, Scott. I was thinking for today to zoom out a little bit from this very sharp toolkit of the KI and processing and debunking and dismantling traumas and deficiency stories, and to revisit somehow the context. Even this KI is a non-dual awareness-based modality for awakening and embodiment. So I wanted to kind of go back to the, somehow revisit some principles for awakening or embodiment, or also to bounce some ideas with you coming from this, let's say, deep Advaita teachings. And when I refer to these deep Advaita teachings in my book, it's not the new Advaita, it's more like Ramana Maharishi, Nisargadatta, Robert Adams, let's say Rupert, other people like that, that I know it was very essential for you at the beginning before you got to KI. Oh, and since we are talking here and this will go to a bunch of people, I noticed that you started a series on YouTube, which I really appreciate, and it's useful for the people I work with, to tell the practices and the principles that you followed before you got to KI. How to have awakening to what we are. And so, yeah, the series called, I think, Enlightenment Embodied. Yeah, a series of videos. So I recommend people to check that out. So I guess on that vein.
Well, like you said before, our interview started, like you're rediscovering, like when you go into a lot of processing, I think you and I have done that because we felt the need for it, like in our own life. And when you do that, you can turn away from some of the teachings that feel rather bypassy or whatever. We've talked about all of that, but then you were talking about like rediscovering it. I like that idea of rediscovering the non-dual message, but now with less bypassing and really processing content, instead of trying to overlook it. So I like that. And that's kind of how I see it. When I had the awakening 2007, didn't have any inquiry at all, none. So that Enlightenment Embodied series is actually just, in one way, yeah, it's explaining like, this was my path, this is what I did. But also you can see where on my path, I hit a wall. Like in those videos, I talk about it, like, yeah, the awareness, you are the awareness, let everything be as it is. And then there's a wall that comes, like something's hidden, something's unconscious, something's repressed, inner KI right there. So I was trying to bring the two together really in that video series. They two are so seamlessly together for me that I can't split them apart. I mean, awareness and this work feel like they're just they're doing the same thing. Yeah. It's the same thing. So today we're focusing more on, I guess, the recognition of that, the non-dual awareness, whether or not you use KI or not. But I think it's kind of interesting to bring in how we would, not going into detail about that, but where maybe we would bring in processing. That's another thing. Because I do feel like just being awareness, like resting as awareness, for a lot of people is not enough. I know that sounds blasphemous because a lot of people are saying that that's all that you need, but I think we've hashed that out on our videos, how it's really not people. But there's a lot that you can talk about, without getting into like deep somatic inquiry around recognition of awareness as being the foundation. For me, let me say this. So I didn't have inquiry when the awakening, before it and after it. so I got to see the limitations of that in my own practice. That's what was so beautiful about that. Like I was just really trusting awareness because I was told that just trust, be that. And then I trusted that and found these little areas where I had to go deeper with KI. When I did, I feel like, I don't know what's meant by deeper Advaita, but I feel like embodiment gets you, that's part of what they're pointing to, even if they didn't, that for me, that's what it is. It's like a deeper abiding. But I want to hear what deep Advaita means to you.
Sorry, I know I just came up with this term this morning, so I don't want to go to with the deep Advaita. But let me ask you something. You know, I just was having some clients the other day that they used to be doing well, and then suddenly they come and they are like, they tell me they are not doing well at all. They are like a mess. So I'm like, huh. I'm first surprised because they look okay, but then they explain to me they are a mess, and I ask them, hey, I'm trying to troubleshoot. What are you doing? Do you have any coping skills? They say, well, you know, I used to do this, but no, I don't want to do this. Any yoga, any meditation, anything, any YouTube, any Eckhart Tolle, any, no. I was like, well, no wonder you are a mess. So basically, I mean, you are practicing relentlessly something. You are absolutely devoted, committed, what pointedness of mind to a certain practice technique. So, and I could see that this person, they stopped for some reason. Stopped. They had some misunderstanding. They had some. It came up in session that they had some distortion. That, well, wow, if I go more to group and I do more of this, more trauma will come and I'm going to be devastated. So I think it's too much. I'm going to pull away from this and do nothing, which becomes much more painful. But anyway, I could see that it's important to emphasize for clients or even through seekers the how important is this to have a practice and to be devoted to it and not just once a day or something. So can you speak a little bit about this from experience with yourself as well as other people that you feel like they were successful in freeing themselves from suffering?
If the practice is designed to sort of to be with everything, not bypass and deconstruct things, like showing you that's illusion, it's a really good practice to have. If you have a practice like that, I can see where people say, if you have a practice that coddles or reinforces the idea of ego, yes, of course, but not all practices do that. So what are we doing? Were we not discerning at all between this or that practice? Like discernment has to be on the path here. So discerning between, again, a practice that coddles the self, that helps protect the self, that we even need that sometimes, regulate the nervous system, all that. Yeah, that kind of practice could create lots of frustration and seeking. But if your practice is awareness-based, and for example, if you have inquiry, you're not actually reinforcing self when you're doing inquiry. You're constructing that. Now, people would say, well, there's all kinds of arguments here, Mihai, like even people who've recognized or they've been to non-dual meetings and something has happened and now they believe or they think that they've realized, that comes in there too. It's not just before when something is too much. It sometimes is after, where they've been told so much, that there's no one here, that any sort of practice then they think reinforces that. They reinforces, but to me, that's no discernment there. You're just not discerning, just throwing everything into one category. Practice has been tremendously helpful for me. I can't imagine my life without it, but it has to be with, I feel it has to be skillful. It has to be not designed to bypass. It needs for me to be awareness-based. And if it's awareness-based, then the practice isn't as likely to, fuel up the ego, right? If you're doing the work from ego mind and you're just trying to rearrange, I could see how that would create seeking. But if you're doing it from awareness in a deconstructive manner, there's no problem with that. Like, I don't see a problem with that. And can be a big problem if you don't. I mean, you just saw that. I've seen many examples of that through the years. Many examples of people who stop They just believe there's no practice to do. And almost in every, I can't think of a situation that turned out well of those. I can't think of, it didn't just turn out well for them. Like they had to eventually do something, or otherwise, because the trauma remains, the identifications remain, the thing remains until something comes in there to neutralize it. So even if you have a belief that there's no one here, or that's your, if that's your experience, that doesn't mean that there's nothing to process. Like that doesn't mean that necessarily that there's nothing there to see. I don't know if that helps to get the conversation started. Maybe we could talk about specific things like
No,
practices.
it does help. Also, I can see you are working more with people who did a lot of satsangs and stuff, and I'm working, let's say, with some people are more at the beginning. So they don't have the belief that there's no one here.
Right.
It's just that there's at the point that it would be good to develop the understanding that, hey, I need to devote some time every day and as frequent as possible during the day to put my attention and where my money and my heart towards what I'm interested, you know. So if I'm interested in healing and spirituality and awakening, then you need to put time in focus on that, you know. And so yeah, the need for practice. So I'm kind of more like at the lower level here. And I guess, yeah, you are saying different type of practices, but what we find as being not harmful and actually being useful is, you know, like this kind of zazen, the Zen meditation, let's say watching the breath until the mind gets more quiet. When the breath when the mind gets more quiet, don't need to watch the breath, but be present to witnessing thought, images, sensations, feelings without trying to change them, get rid of them, just like they're coming and going. So this kind of witnessing, welcoming, meditation, right?
Yes, because at that level where they're not to the place where they believe there's no one, they just feel like it's too much.
Yeah.
Think they
Yes.
understand that level is the ego is identification and resistance. That's the default state. So if you do nothing,
Hang on, can you say it again, because it was a little breakup at that level? Yeah.
The default state of humans is suffering, right?
Yeah.
So the default state is resistance and identification with thought and feeling. So if you do nothing, you're just, the default state remains.
Yes.
So to enter in a practice is helpful for that, to interrupt the process of identifying and resisting
Yes.
things. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I want to talk a little bit. We can go later about the next level, but at this level, it's not only helpful, but it's like nothing is going to change if we don't have some practice like that. And and also at some point to be not just, you mentioned this often, not just 30 minutes in the morning or an hour. This is great, but then there's a tendency this may become compartmentalized. So to find a way to bring into everyday life, I was in the fourth way there, we didn't even have meditation, but it was everyday life, this witnessing presence, Eckhart Tolle thing. And it seems like from what you hear you talk in the past, you somehow got that. It wasn't just meditation. You were going to the courthouse, you were going to the store, somehow engaging in some portable witnessing present. So can you talk a little bit about this? Not just once a day, but as much as possible, as often as possible, as long as possible, and how to jumpstart that, how to remind oneself of that.
So for me, I think I was compartmentalizing. I was thinking of spirituality is here and then my life is here. And so I think that splitting that duality creates problems for people. But as they think, how do I bring spirituality into my life? Or how, if you can do some work on that, just let that whole duality go away. Like do some inquiry on the idea that spirituality, for example, is different than life, because as you do inquiry like this, you see it's actually relevant to human life. Like you don't actually see the word spiritual come up anywhere. It's about triggers here, beliefs there, programs there that are actually happening in your life and in your relationships. But if you think of spirituality as separate from your life, you'll miss all those opportunities to bring the practice into those situations. So what happened for me is I was compartmentalizing, and then I would get up in the morning, sit for 20 minutes, 30 minutes or more and meditate, and then at night again, compartmentalizing. So it was really calm and peaceful and wonderful for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, or maybe for a little while after. But then life happened, all of its triggers, relationships.
Yeah.
Spirituality is nowhere on the, at first, nowhere on the radar until I got home at night and back to meditation. So that didn't work. I just saw it for something. I don't know why. I just realized that doesn't work for me.
You
So
saw it. You saw it's partial. So what do you do next? How?
Yeah. Well, you know, people like Eckhart were helpful, where he was just saying in the middle of what you're doing, rest. So that was one thing. It's just that meditative awareness, whatever I'm recognizing there, is that here when I'm walking to the restroom? Is it here when I'm sitting at the computer? Is it here when I'm talking to someone? Just first of all, checking into it, simple. But then being aware of, you know, like observing the things that arise in the middle of the day. So in meditation, I would observe this or that arise and let that be. But in the middle of the day, I would notice that wouldn't happen. It would be like thoughts come in, I believe it, I'm triggered, I'm upset. So just turning right in the middle of that, like as if a meditation, observing that, letting that be there, resting. Once you realize it actually helps your life, like it's very, very helpful. And you don't have a problem as much bringing it in once you realize how helpful it is.
Yes, that's what I found out. You know, I was doing this as a young man in a spiritual cult, and anyway, that still had many benefits. And later I had problems. But let's talk about the benefits first. So yeah, I found it indeed. It makes you are more stable. You are more able to handle triggers, and you are less checked out. You know, usually there's this tendency, it's called daydreaming, that we are checked out all the time. And the problem is that we are not daydreaming about my next vacation in Maui. No, we are daydreaming about problems, something that will happen, something that happened. You know, Paul Hederman was saying we are suffering with what's not happening all the time. So yeah, so all kind of little practices like actually very helpful. And I heard Thich Nhat Hanh passed away very recently, and he was very good for teaching this kind of stuff. Like he had many books, I don't know, Being Peace or Miracle of Mindfulness, something like how to, as you are walking, how to not just rush and be mechanically kind of going somewhere elsewhere, but when you walk, it's like you kiss the earth. And then when you're driving and you're doing the dishes, not to do for somewhere else. So somehow being devoted to the present, to attend to the present experience as a portal to awareness, and to reaffirm this as often as possible, like bathroom. I guess to have these mini islands, you were talking this to, just a little breather. You know, I'm in line, nothing to do. Instead of pulling out my phone, I don't know, take a breath and just be like a cat, you know, like a conscious cat, going to the bathroom, all of this. Yeah, there was this Tibetan master was saying that true meditation is not before meditation and after meditation. It's like a continuous river, you know. So to make it more like that, that's very important for a stage on the path. And without going through that, I don't know how one can have major awakening unless there's those special rare cases.
Yeah, exactly. Because I've had a few people contact me after going to some non-dual meetings where they were being pointed to like, oh, just awareness, just pointing to awareness. And which was great because they recognized that, oh, that's there. And then, but with the lack of mindfulness, they were coming back to me because they were like, this is not the whole thing, because there are things that are rising, unconscious things, and I'm getting triggered, even though I recognize myself as the awareness. There's a lack of mindfulness as to what's arising, thoughts, feelings, sensations. So it's important, I think, to make that little distinction there, that you're being told sometimes just to rest. You're the absolute. You're this great, open, awake, empty space. But in that, if there's a lack of mindfulness, that's just one thing.
The lack of mindfulness towards what?
towards what's actually arising within the space. So you might say, but you're not aware that there's this unconscious deficiency story here because there's a lack of being present to that. So the Thich Nhat Hanh type of be present to, observe these things as they come through is what I'm pointing to, not just you're the space.
Yeah. Okay, I know what you mean. When I was in that fourth way, we were more like, okay, watch thoughts and drop, snuff them and come to the present, be like a cat, and hearing, seeing, oh, you're going, come back. So, and at the same time, I didn't know I didn't, it wasn't done from the understanding that I am this aware presence. It was from like me, Mihai, being very aware, and that had a lot of problems. I need to be to get rehauled later. But you are talking about to be in the present consciously, as opposed to lost in thought, but to witness, really observe. I guess observe, in the body, the ideas, the various imaginings, right?
Yeah, notice. We say notice sometimes.
Notice, right.
As your awareness when thought arises, just turning toward noticing it, letting it be there. Fully be there. So for me, I don't think you have to go like that. Like you can, but there, there's at least the potential you and I've talked about of enforcing suppression and repression of emotions when you do that. So, or like, can you just allow, there's different practices, as you know, like Dzogchen versus this or that, but generally the practice that I like is, resting as awareness, but then being present to what arises. Not everything, but just flexing that muscle to be present to what arises. Because after the non-dual realization for me, it was clear that I am this, right? But without attending to really subtle unconscious thoughts, my ex-husband would trigger me. There would be a woundedness that comes up. But if I just rest as the space, again, I'm missing something. I'm not some really unconscious thoughts here, like I'm unlovable. So I could, right there is where that mindfulness comes in, to actually be aware coming through, instead of just I'm the space, I'm the space, I'm the space. But notice that these things are coming through. You can just let those be.
So let me ask you something, because so far we talked about this beginning or standard useful practice to witness the phenomena as opposed to being identified in them. And so, so you did this persistently and devotedly for some time until you had the realization of the perceiver. Although you were not focusing on who am I, you were not doing non-dual, what is aware right now, who am I, what is the nature of the observer. You were observing phenomena and you had some realization about the subject.
So for me, I didn't do the who am I or any of that. I didn't have any inquiry. All that I was doing was I became interested in that there's something here that isn't thought. Like, what is that? Because all my life had been thought. So then I touched this thing that isn't thought, and I just became really curious around that. What is that? Because nobody has talked to me about that my whole life. Like I can't trust the humans because they're not. I can trust the teachers, but nobody else is pointing to this thing here. So I just discovered it for myself. There's this place where there's no thought. So just noticing thought come through, let it come through, or feeling. And then here it is. When the thought falls away, there's this, it doesn't have thought. Well, that's presence. But just coming back to that each time by noticing what's coming through. The who am I thing got seen, because even without asking a question. Because it's a realization, actually. It's not an understanding of the mind. It's not like, oh, I know that I'm the space. It's a direct experience. Like literally everything is coming through. And there's something here that isn't coming through. And that somehow just dawned in my experience, even without asking.
Actually, by doing this witnessing phenomena persistently and devotedly, there is some change in the phenomena. There will be less thoughts, there will be less static, and when there's less thoughts and less static, there's a chance to observe, I guess, the background, the aware background. So because the monkey mind was more subdued, You can see there's something else there. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. Okay, so now they are the, oh yeah, let's stay with this a little bit in order to how to bring, let's say, more this being work in everyday life. Besides these frequent reminders, in the fourth way, we call it to remind yourself as often as possible to remember oneself, come back to the sense of being.
Yeah.
But I think there's this element of using triggers. So it's less compartmentalized. Basically, each time I'm triggered, each time I have a judgment about people, each time I catch myself gossiping, or to not to stop it, but to be like a mindfulness bell, like ping, like, oh wow, okay. Each time there is a disturbance in the system, to use that to start witnessing more, right? And so now relationships are going to help a lot, because and here, coming back to KI, so the boomerang, which is, okay, I'm triggered, instead of attacking or going off the railings or collapsing, to see, okay, what old program deficiency story has been evoked in me by this trigger. So the boomerang in relationships and in life, it's a very cool practice to make the work portable. It's not compartmentalized.
Yes. So I just wrote down, where did I learn that I had to repress anger in relationship, early life? Where did I learn that I'm a deficient self, early life, relationship? Where did I learn almost everything about my identity was there? So when we're coming to the non-dual, we said this the other day, but why would I be ignoring the triggers that come from what I learned in relationship if I'm trying to discover what I am? Because I need to see what I'm not. And these triggers are showing me what I'm not. And to be with that, I discover what I am in that. So I'm just like you, obviously. The triggers are super helpful. Like, I don't, by the way, and you said it, like treating the triggers as like a doorway into the recognizing are very important.
Yeah.
Then that's how, you said it, that's how you no longer compartmentalize spirituality and life. How many times on the mat are you really triggered in the same way that you are when your girlfriend says something, or mom, or whatever?
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember that I was coming to Francis, and I was like, hey, I'm pretty good, but like my mom triggers me all the time. And he was like, hey, 3 things you need to do here. First of all, let go trying to change her completely. You need to really get this in your head. Let go trying to change her. And each time you are triggered, be very interested in your trigger. Observe your energy, the body, the this and the that. He wasn't giving me pointers much. Okay, what deficiency story is evoked in me? There was no boomerang there, but he wanted me to watch the ripples, the crumples, the waves in my body. And he said, yeah, be interested more in that than like busy with her. And that was very interesting. Yeah, I lost the thought, but if you have anything here.
Yeah, there was something earlier, because I'm just listening. I'm just thinking of the people that are listening, and there's different audiences out there. And like you say, and I know that part of the audience is the non-dual audience. So something came up earlier. Oh, let's see if I can articulate this. So I've had people say to me when talking about like integrating spirituality in life, when I bring that conversation up, some people will say, well, if I bring awareness into my everyday life, won't I be bypassing certain issues? And it sounds right, but on the first, of course you could bring practice in that bypasses, but answer her question, we're living in a state of unconsciousness. So to not bring the awareness into me would be the bypass. See, because we're already living in a state of unconsciousness. So to not bring the awareness in would be the bypass. But in the mind, sometimes the mind says, well, if I bring the awareness in, then somehow I'm bypassing something that needs to be dealt with in my life. But not if the inquiry is, not if you're skillfully with that. You're not trying to get away from it. You're just seeing something in the midst of it. You're seeing what you believe You're seeing what you feel, and you're also seeing that that's not you. Like, that's not a bypass unskillfully.
Yeah, now this is for, okay, can I just one more on the previous thing before we go to, let's say, more like more, let's say, advanced stage or the next stage where people are doing who am I and being going into non-duality. Before we go into that, can I ask you about this? What I like about Thich Nhat Hanh and Eckhart, Buddha didn't talk about cell phones, internet, cars, and distraction all the time, and identify with this all the time. So that's what I like about Thich Nhat Hanh and Eckhart Tolle. Brings attention to upgrading the Buddhist teaching or the non-dual teaching to the obstacles where it keeps us asleep. And this cell phone, I mean, I think it should definitely include it on addiction. Yeah, it could be totally addiction, compulsion, inquiry, cell phone, which is like it's most basically is the mind, a lot of mind, and now the cell phone is like much more mind now attached to me. It's like double, 3 times. Do you have any suggestions or thoughts on? I often come out of my session, next client is waiting on the phone. Oh, everybody's on the phone. I'm like, what the fuck? It's like your friend is like the phone. When I see somebody who is not on the phone sitting there, I'm like, yes, man. Yes, wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the same thing. So how people that are listening, if you tend to compartmentalize your spirituality and just have a practice that's separate from your daily life, chances are you have not brought your practice into your cell phone either. That usually they go together. And you can do the renunciation thing where I'm not going to try to get rid of everything. But if you don't, then here's your spiritual practice, this phone, because it's going to bring everything that would be brought up in relationship and maybe much more right there. So that's literally might be one of your best teachers, is to keep that in your hand, but then to be skillful with it, like to see, just to rest, as Francis says. I love that. Like, instead of being really focused on that post, can you be with what's coming up here? Like, from awareness, can you? So there's one way, but you can actually, with KI, become even more skillful with it. As you know, you can use the cell phone in a very surgical way, like seeing exactly what you're believing and your traumas and your shadows and your repressions, and being able to go into that. But we won't go into all that, but just generally, it's the same thing. Why is a cell phone outside of spiritual practice? Like, why?
Yeah, so not for me, it's not only that, okay, now I'm going on Facebook and this triggers me and I am, and then so we can observe those triggers, but even there's a compulsion. There's a compulsion. Like there's a moment of, if like there's nothing is happening, seemingly there's no mind stimulation, there's no chasing anything, there is a sense of existential sense of lack, or sense of, which is actually some maybe trauma information coming up, antsiness, and then the hand goes for the phone. The hand goes for the phone, and I mean, I notice it in myself and with many people, like going for it. So that's like a pacifier, man. It's like for the mind. So yeah, I think even the exercise is okay. Hey, put your phone down. You can do it like this for like a few hours a day. So you're walking in nature. Okay, this is good. Don't take it to your bedroom when you go. Okay, this is good. But there were exercises like each time when my hand goes to a phone, be like, okay, observe what's happening here. So somehow I think bringing awareness to this subconscious dimension of the relationship with the phone.
Yeah,
that would be cool.
There's actually a lot happening between the point in time when I'm right here and I pick up the phone. It's like there's a lot happening between the time that I'm here on the couch and I pick up the beer or whatever the thing is that's compulsive. And that's the thing we're talking about in New Model, is there's a lot happening right there. So if you're on your phone and you're not kind of being in awareness, there's a lot of unconsciousness happening with every click, with every post. So much material there that could show you. So it's the same thing as like when people say, well, should I should I stop my addiction? Should I stop drinking? Well, you make that decision. But the point being, either way, you can't transform fully, in my view, by pushing things away. Like, I don't know how that works. If I think of the cell phone, like, so that's a question, like, what are you using your spirituality for? Is it, the idea is my spirituality is this soothing thing that where when I'm in meditation, there's no interruptions and that open, empty space. What is that? And is that the kind of spirituality that you have where you try to cultivate those states and somehow avoiding the stuff of real life, right? So if you have a cell phone issue, you might think, well, I'm going to put this down. I'm not going to deal with it, right? Well, that to me could come from the fact of how you see your spirituality. Like, if you see your spirituality as soothing, coddling, you know, it's the thing that happens when I'm not angry, that kind of thing, then you might think that, like, I'm not gonna, but if you go right into it, everything is there for you right there with that, whether you're picking up a beer or a cell phone. So I just don't understand how the deeper transformation happens through the avoidance. I don't know how that happens.
Yes. Thanks for bringing this up. I mean, first of all, you know, bring awareness to this will be the most pervasive, subtle, unspoken addiction, our modern day iPhone or Android addiction. So yeah, what I said before is useful to just, oh wow, I can see how my hand goes there and all of that. But then if I just stop, it's like with the cigarette. And now I started smoking tobacco recently. And so now I guess in order to verify this KI on addiction more experientially, I started anyway. So I'm putting it down. I'm like, oh, I shouldn't smoke this. So I really recommend, and I will do this with people, to use the addiction KI protocol with the preoccupation and all the drivers for the cell phone. Like, you know, have the cell phone, and I have no need to have the cell phone all the time. I don't need to check Facebook and see what comes, and then I can check Facebook and be on the phone anytime, all the time. So I guess preoccupation, compulsion, inquiry, KI, as well as finding the drivers. It could be boredom, could be shame. You know, I have anxiety deficiency story, then it's a pacifier. So this is like everything else: porn, Netflix, chocolate, weed.
Yeah. So keeping with the cell phone, if people are choosing not to get on the cell phone, the idea is they want freedom, right? They want freedom from whatever that brings up. But it's a great freedom, I think, when you are actually able to pull the phone up and you're dealing with everything. And so the phone doesn't seem scary anymore, like it doesn't actually. And you actually start to lose interest. You may start to lose interest in a lot of the trolling that you were doing when you start more conscious. And so then you have the freedom in the midst of, like, you didn't avoid it, you actually went into it. So Grindr is the example that I give. As a gay man, Grindr is an app where you can meet any gay man anywhere for anonymous, whatever else. So I got on Grindr. I was in an open relationship, a different one, sexually open. So I went on Grindr and again, just did this. Like, instead of hiding from it, I put myself out there, got rejected. Felt deficiency story, repression, shame, all that. And because I was triggered by all those things, the Grindr was very interesting to me because of the triggers. Like, I was really compelled towards it. Just like people are compelled towards social media and trolling and all that. But as you clear it up, it's not that compelling. See, the compulsion, the compelling nature comes from the unprocessed emotional and mental stuff.
So the new model of recovery, that we're not going to go so much into it now, but we're using processing compulsions and addictions with the aim of being free from them. That doesn't mean that we have to be now never use cell phone. I don't have cell phone. I'm sober from cell phone or Facebook. I have to delete. I have many people, oh, I deleted Facebook. I deleted. So, but I guess in the fourth way, they had this obstacle to awakening: unnecessary thinking, unnecessary talk, So basically to discharge unnecessary phone activity that's used as a pacifier. And now I have this awesome tool, which can be an office. You have a whole company. It's an office. And then it's very helpful to me.
Yeah.
You know?
Can I say this?
Yeah.
I see the intellect that way. The intellect is like the intellect. Our intellect is a tool that way. So when we come to school, we think, okay, the intellect is the problem. My thinking is a problem. But as you process things, thinking is a tool, just like this. It's not. So that's freedom.
Yes. You know, Laura Lucille was saying that, you know, like how the mind is an application of consciousness and has all these programs. So the cell phone, exactly with these applications, it's like an extension of the mind. And now you have more application. You have the Tinder, the Grindr, the Facebook, the Instagram, the TikTok, the this. They are kind of, we are going there, missing God, let's say, missing Allah, missing the present, you know. Okay, let's go a little further. Okay, so now, because I think what we talked so far is more like what's called progressive path, which I think everybody starts on the progressive path, where, okay, it's me, I'm working on myself. I don't know who me is, but I'm working on this and doing this and meditating here and exploring, going to therapy, you know. Now they say in these non-dual teachings that this is more like the path to the path. You get clean up a little bit, you purify yourself. Basically, because I'm engaging from the uninvestigated belief that me, Joe, I'm trying to wake up. Yeah. And that, anyway, they say now you get to the path. So where you get to the path is when there is some glimpse or understanding that the I, what we call I, is not Mihai or the story of me, but is this aware presence. So in the non-dual, it's more like from at this point, they say, okay, so don't be more interested in the perceiver than the phenomena. What, and Ramana will say things like, whatever arises, it's a thought, a feeling, be interested in that which is aware of it. So now you have this, you know, which is a valid path. There are many paths up the mountain, I think, many techniques. I mean, it's a valid and awesome to whatever is happening, to 180 the attention and be interested in the knower of the phenomena, which is considered as a fast track towards having awakening to what we are. Which, I mean, it's awesome. It can have a lot of problems. And I think a lot of our first interviews were about that. So actually, when I got to Francis and Rupert, Francis detected in me this mindfulness practice. And he wanted me to stop it. Basically, he was like, you need to stop this. You need to, because he was detecting this effortfulness. I was efforting from and seeking energy, you know, as me doing some awareness practice to go somewhere. And so he actually told me straight up, yeah, that sounds nice, but you need to stop it. Basically, I need to cure you of this in order to understand that by being more aware, I'm not going to reach more awareness than somewhere, but awareness is already here. Anyway, so this was for me, it was helpful. It took me a long time to stop that because I was kind of doing it for a long time. It seemed like sacred. Anyway, so now we are on this other leg of the journey. You made some notes.
Yeah, I just wrote down, I actually agree with a lot of that. Be the awareness. I just wrote down, not at the expense of emotion, not at the expense of unresolved trauma, and not at the expense of the body generally.
Yes.
Because we know more now. Since the guru said that thousands of years ago, we know more now as humans. We also know there's been a history of bypassing, even if the teachings didn't intend that. We now know that here we can't ignore it at this point. You can, but so now that we know that, can we, this is the title of our thing, is that where the non-duality comes with the processing together, and then less bypassing. But I totally understand what they're saying, even when they say to do kind of busy work might reinforce, you know, the ego. Certainly we feel that way too here. You know, we don't want to reinforce ego. But the thing I wrote down here is, as you do work like this, including even processing or just resting as awareness, the effortlessness starts to arise. You start to see that it's effortless. You're you're not doing any of it. It's all just happening. And when you see that, then when you see it's all just happening like that, that's no longer identifying really with the story. So the story is the efforting. The identity there is the efforting. So recognizing the awareness, the efforting starts to slow down, or stop. But then the becoming still happens. Like the transformation still can happen even after that, much maybe more on the human level. So for example, I recognize that I am this, whatever this is. But let's say, this is actually a real life example, but again, there's shame, unprocessed, sex addiction or whatever. So I open myself to that processing. And then now I'm just abiding more deeply in awareness. And so something happened, but what happened was not that I had another non-dual realization. It's not that, it's something else is seen in that. It's not like, I already know I'm that. Even in the midst of that, I still know I'm that here. What else is happening there on that phenomenal level? So we don't want to be awareness, I guess, at the expense of all this phenomena that we've been avoiding and trying to run from since we were little kids, you know?
Yes, that's where I got to you when I got to you. I started to have clarity around this. Okay, I am this, whatever it is, which is aware. And actually, I don't need to meditate all day to be what I am. And my mind is quiet and all that. But I have patterns, I have addiction, I have unprocessed trauma, I have relationship problems. And what I was doing before I come to you, they would say, sweetheart, that's not you, that's not real. Just go back to the aware open space. And I was like, oh, okay. All right, okay. I got identified with that. Let me go back to the aware open space. And somehow the shit will mysteriously dissipate. I hope. That's the idea. Okay. And at the same time, I was a therapist by day, so I'll process with people. But in my mind, I was like, well, yeah, but this is the lower path, because the higher path is that's not real, and I'm that. So I played that until I got to you. We had talks about this. So that's what I like now. Now basically it's all integrated. Yes, having islands during busy life to remember oneself, be knowingly the space. The trigger comes, okay, observe the trigger, process, boomerang, deficiency story. It dispels, okay, it's nice. So this is much more tactical. I feel it's like special forces. I think you're on mute.
Yeah, so that reminds me to say it this way. A lot of people get really focused on seeing through the seeker identity. So the seeking for enlightenment, and then a lot of the pointers are directed like, well, there's no seeker, there's no person. But that's not the only thing to be concerned with, right? Because the seeker arose because of the pain that we were avoiding, that we have. The seeker arose as something to kind of respond to that. And now we can't just focus on the seeker, because that's not really what started it all. The seeker is just that thought stream that says, keep going, keep going, keep going, you're not there. Why is that even happening? Because we've been avoiding all the emotion and stuff, see?
Yeah.
So it's not just about putting the seeker to rest, it's about being with all this, instead of running from it as we recognize awareness, finally being with it. Yeah, I just want to put that, because there's a lot of focus on that. Like, I'm seeking, help me put that to rest. But
yeah,
you can and still have a lot of suffering, is what I'm saying. Just because the seeking mind is now quiet, that doesn't mean that you're truly abiding in.
Yeah, it's almost in the usual non-dual circle. Being a seeker at some point is not cool. It's not cool. So even I remember in some of these teachings I was going satsangs, there was this distinction. Okay, you are a truth seeker, and then you are a truth lover, which is like, hey man, I'm no longer seeking, man. I got it. I'm good, man. I'm a truth lover. And so make sure that everybody, you know, I'm not a truth seeker anymore. I'm a truth lover. I'm still going another retreat, another, which, you know, Francis was saying that he went for 20 years to satsang with his teacher, Jean Klein. Although after 3 years he was good, and he just loved it. He just loved the company. And so it's okay to go, because man, I love these people here. This is good. And I like my, you know, so one can still go for a long time. You know, now some other people take it like, okay, well, I'm not a seeker anymore. I'm not going anymore. I know I shouldn't be going, although I really like to be going. I lost the.
Well, I'll just add that.
Oh yeah, we're talking about embodiment, that basically recognition and then going back, and you know, like this prodigal son. Everybody, all the children, lost children within, they are welcome back. Nothing is left behind. Nobody is left behind.
Yeah. Plus, you're going back for a different reason. There's the intense seeking isn't there. That's a different experience being in a meeting like that. Like I'd go see an audio meeting for sure. I'm not seeking enlightenment, but I would love to sit in that. Yeah. Just hear it. Yeah.
No, with the prodigal son, I meant about what's your strong pointers now. Hey, look at the addiction, look at the anxiety, look at the contraction in the belly. So not to abandon those, to let them all come home, you know. Yeah. So that's the embodiment.
So is that what this is about then? Like, are people so they so much want to be a truth lover? They want to, so you want to switch from that I'm a seeker to a lover, like switching from what I did.
It's like a higher level. You have more rank.
Right, which wouldn't be a problem, because if you do recognize that, you can say it like, okay, I've recognized that. But why does that have to be a stop? Why does that have to be that I'm not going to any more meetings and I'm not going to process anything? I don't understand how you could be there. I understand recognizing the truth.
Yeah.
I don't understand why then we close awareness off as if we're not going to look at anything else now. It doesn't actually make sense when you think about it. I've recognized awareness, but I'm not going to be aware of certain things.
Yeah, because I don't want to go to the mud.
Well, because I'm aware.
Because it's not real. Well, okay. Hey, so.
But meanwhile, you brought up behaviors, so that's a thing. So people recognize what they are, but then their body's still acting this out and acting this out, right? You mentioned that earlier, behaviors.
Yeah.
So you may have recognized and found the truth, but your body hasn't apparently caught on to it yet.
Yeah. I remember that I came to one of these teachers that I still love very much, and because I have just witnessed some problematic behavior that created suffering in my life. That created suffering for me and others. That was behavior that I had since childhood. So then I see it, and I'm like, oh my God, this pattern of, I guess, egoic pattern of hiding, selfishness, lying, whatever. That was actually, this is how there was a strategic pattern that I developed as a 5-year-old to deal with my environment. And I cleaned it up a lot, but it will come back. It just came back, and I was, anyway, so I go to the guru and to the teacher and say, my God, this is back. This is, I can't believe I'm doing this. I was like, whoa, how can it be? And what he said to me, which was helpful at that time, but he asked him what to do with this resurfacing pattern of separation. And he said to me, which was helpful in the moment, but not in the long run. Maybe he's right. He said, I'll tell you what to do. He said, you just need to watch these patterns as they are going to go away by themselves. I was like, wow, okay, I like that. I like that. It's like, oh, it just left me out of guilt and shame, and it was hopeful, and he's probably right. But it might take another like 25 years or a few lifetimes. So why not, right? What we are doing in KI here is like, hey, let's bring it up, man. Let's see what's this made up of, and you can do it in like 3 weeks or something, 2 months.
Yeah, you don't have to wait. And plus, do we actually know that repression and trauma is all going to arise and resolve itself? Do we actually know that?
Yeah, we don't. It's not happening. So it's not happening. It's amazing how some of these teachings are, and the teacher could be actually really free. I feel some of these teachers, whatever they've done, they didn't do KI, they've done other things. I don't know, God is great. And they are free. And they are just sharing, and it's useful, but as Francis says, it's not the full enchilada.
Oh, he says that.
He
About
says
what?
that, hey, he says like, hey, that's about the full enchilada and not the full enchilada. You know, when something is not the big thing, the whole picture.
Okay.
You know?
I like.
Yeah. Okay, so let me ask you something now, what I called, if you still have time.
Yeah, and plus we want to talk about the I thought and the emotions, that little thing. I think you wanted to bring that in, that we were talking about.
So let's go about that then, because I wanted to go in the so-called deep Advaita. but let's go with this. What do you understand by actual ego? We keep talking about ego and ego-based and this or that. So what's your
Yeah, so I've never found it, and since I've been looking, that I can't find anything like a thing. There's no thing there. So the term is misleading to begin with, because it seems like there's a thing there, and it seems like there's a bunch of things here, obviously. But the main thing is that I am here as a thing. So as you start resting in awareness, whether you're processing or not, you start to see, I don't really see things, I see a series of words, pictures, feelings, sensations, usually one after the other. And because I don't investigate this, it seems like that makes up an object, like me, like ego. But as you start to see it, you don't ever find the self. This is what we were discovering in Unfindable Inquiry. All the time, years and years, we did that. Nobody ever found the self. They only found the series of arisings. So maybe we could talk about it as, I actually like the way Paul talks about it, Hederman, when he says selfing.
Selfing.
That
The
feels
activity of consciousness identifying as an object.
Yeah, activity like that.
It's basically the ego or selfing is an activity of the true self.
Yes, yes.
It's being confused.
Right. So I like that. So maybe that's a good context for people just to stop. Because when you talk about ego as a thing,
then you want to get rid of the thing.
Yes, you reify it, and then it's a big deal. But if you actually see what's there, it's a series, then you're with your actual experience. You're not reifying something that you're actually seeing what it is made of, the series.
Yeah. There's also this dissociation a little bit, because in even, oh, by the way, in Advaita and the Hindu texts, they don't have this term ego. Doesn't exist. This is more like came from 1850, when British scholars or something translated some of these things, and they called it, because of Freud or whatever, the ego. But apparently the term was avidya, which meant ignorance about conscious and the ignorance about our true nature. So it's like it's a setting of ignorance about what we are. And then all this translation, the ego, the self, this or that. And so that's good. I like that. Also, I like this thing, just like how we don't want to make the ego as an object. So it's more like an activity, selfing. Was very helpful for me about consciousness, because we call consciousness, witness, presence, all of these are nouns.
Yeah.
But somebody said, it was very helpful for me when he said it, that, oh, it's more like a verbing. I think still Paul. It's a consciousnessing. It's an awarenessing. Because then if I now in my mind make the presence as a something, then now there are a lot of problems with that too.
Yeah. So it occurs to me to bring this up. Now that we've talked about how there really isn't an ego, there's just this series of arising. I think we can talk about bypassing a little bit more. Because someone said to me the other day, I said, you know, you could actually be living in non-conceptual awareness and still be repressing emotion. And they were just appalled by that. Like, how could there? There's no self there. My point was, there is never been a self. Like, it doesn't matter. There's no self. That's established. You can recognize it in your own experience. That in of itself doesn't answer the question of repression, because there's not a self in consciousness doing something, but there's also not a self in the unconscious repressing. You're still just the series of thoughts. So for me, the series of thoughts with repression is I can't experience anger. I can't show anger. I can't show anger. It was good not to reify a self in that.
Yeah.
It was literally just showing up in the same way it does in my consciousness, like a series.
Yeah.
So even lower unconscious level, still no object. And this is what I want to say about that then. This is why claiming that there's no self, I don't know that that gets us anywhere. It's a great realization, but there never was. And so the question is, are you awake to your patterns? Are you awake to the activity?
Yeah.
So then to the unconscious activity. There's no self. So saying there's no self doesn't do anything there. The question is, are you awake to the unconscious stuff that acts like a self?
Yes. Yeah, it's like in Buddhism to have, they say, to have this realization of several things, realization of anicca, that it's impermanence, coming and going, and then realization of anatta, a no self. But these people, I mean, I guess some of these people, I was never into no self, but speaking from two sides of the mouth. Okay, no self here, but then when identify with the deficiency story, that's like a me right there, you know. So that's right there, the sense of me, the I thought, I feeling.
Yeah.
You know.
Can I ask you something real quick about that? Keep your
Yeah.
thought. I don't know if I can articulate it, but because it's already kind of leaving me, but hold on a second. That's it. So when you realize there's no self, that doesn't save you necessarily from the deficiency stories. That's what I want to say, because there wasn't a self there. So by claiming there's no self, you may actually be missing this completely. You're really hungry for no self, but there never was one. All you have is this now series of more unconscious deficiency story. So if you're not seeing that's just another rising, if that's unconscious, how can you say there's no self? I mean, that there is no self, but that activity of selfing is there. That's there. So you see what I'm saying? So it's like our systems don't care about the no self realization ultimately. Like that's an ego thing. Our systems just give us series of arisings, either conscious or unconscious. We're either awake to it or not. Like, I don't know how to say it.
And going back to what you said, there's a phenomena that are witnessed, and then there is some other phenomena that is repressed. And we are trying to witness that.
Tricky stuff.
Hey, it's interesting because I had some, 5-MeO DMT, which is like the most, they call it the Everest of psychedelic.
Is that the toad thing?
The toad thing. I don't recommend do it alone. Don't do it unless you're ready to die.
Yeah, right.
But that, so I had the no self, but I haven't, no self. But it took me months to put words into all that, and it was obvious. But what's interesting, I guess, consciousness fluctuates in its level. I mean, I think consciousness doesn't fluctuate, but some level of
oscillation,
self-awareness or something. So yeah, I had that then later I'm like a sneaky bastard hiding and lying. So this is happening like that. We don't have to say, oh yeah, I got it.
Yes.
I saw on Facebook, there's a Rupert Spira community. There was a guy, 4 selfies. I realized this. I'm like that. I'm like, okay. I mean, what's the point? it's a ego recognition, you know.
I mean, it is actual realization for sure, seeing that there's no self, but I feel like the ego does get involved with it too much. Like after that, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
and that can be a showstopper is what I'm saying.
Yes.
You put the flag in the ground, there's no self. Why even look? Because there's no self. But there was never a self. So there's just activity here that you're not aware of. That's all that's going on. And your no self thing is actually stopping you from looking at that activity.
Yes.
And that's interesting.
And this is tricky with the showstopper, because I think that's what cult leaders may be formed. Somebody who had some realization and deep like realization of something, and then it's like, oh, I'm complete. And but you're not complete, and there's no supervising, there's no master that, oh, I left my master, I'm good now. And then I remember, I had this with my first teacher, but I remember 10 years ago I went to Vipassana, and I know Vipassana, which is awesome container. You are 11 days, no cell phones, you're not talking, not having much eye contact, no writing, nothing, just meditating a lot. So after about 6-7 days, after I feel like you go crazy, then it started to be just peace and quiet, and there was this deep peace and deep presence, and then I remember I didn't have the Nondual framework, so I remember that I was like, oh wow, I think I got it. I think this is it. I remember I had thoughts like this. I was like, oh, I wonder if there were thoughts like this that were not checked. They would say, oh, I wonder if I go to bed tonight, if tomorrow it will still be there. Oh, these thoughts were not investigated. Then I wake up in the morning, I was like, oh wow, it's still here. Whatever that was, I think was my field was clearer, you know. And that continued for a few more days. And I remember the last few days I was sitting there, and my ego mind, you know, spiritual ego now, who wants recognition and approve. I was having all these minutes and minutes of thinking in the meditation, like, oh yeah, you know what? I'm going to go to Adya now. I'm going to go to Adya Satsang, and I'm going to talk to him, and I'm going to tell him how I've realized, and then he's going to be like, so I was having like hours of this. I was like, and then I was with a buddy too there, and afterwards we talked. He had the same thing. He had this thing, and then he was like, yeah, I'm here, I arrived. So that's a tricky thing to know about.
Yeah. I have a name for it, the satsang crash. The retreat crash, right? I don't know what else goes on there, but how did you contextualize that experience as you look back on it? What was actually happening there? Like you had a peak experience of that stillness or silence presence, and then what happened?
Because of renunciation container, and I was dedicated, and I did the nose, Vipassana. You are focusing here for 4 days. I mean, you're going to be in a different state of consciousness if you focus here for 4 days. And then I was doing all of this and talk to nobody, no cell phone, no girlfriend, nothing. Yeah, it was some, let's say, higher state of consciousness in a way that there was less mind activity. So I guess, I guess I could recognize there is the background. But I still was that me, Mihai, I reach the background. So this in itself is going to crash, because now it's me, the practitioner, having attained it. And the it was still there, but my ego practitioner was involved, I guess. And then the ego practitioner was very enthralled about being recognized as being enlightened. And these were all believed until, I went back. It was like this for a few more days, but then it went back to normal. Yeah.
Yeah. So the satsang crash is when people would go to retreats, and then they would have that altered state, And then at about, Wednesday or Thursday, some crash would happen. It would happen for different reasons. That's why I asked, because sometimes what it was is that something wasn't processed during the retreat. So silence came in and replaced it for a moment, kind of,
Yeah.
Push it down. But since the silence isn't really a realization, it's just a kind of a peak experience, then
Yes.
there that comes back, and that's the crash.
Yeah.
But for you, it sounded like that ego got involved. That's another way where, and so the point being is, whatever it is, this is why I think we have the members area, because to avoid this crash thing, because we're always there.
Yeah.
So that when you have realizations, you can come back and share that, and we can talk about it. Because with the Satsang retreat model, when it's over, it's over. So
yeah,
what to do?
I think that stopped for me because I wasn't having, I wasn't having renunciation anymore, and I wasn't having 10 hours of meditation every day. So actually, and I didn't actually have my mind was not aligned with the truth, because I was still, okay, me, Mihai, individual, separate Mihai, I'm going to reach enlightenment. So that I still had this understanding, and that is going to crash it. So it was a state. Basically, I was objectifying consciousness as a state. Yeah.
And I think it circles back to what we're saying is there can be presence, but that feels separate from my life. So I come to the retreat, everything is cultivating that presence recognition. Everything at that retreat is cultivated. So, but life isn't like that. And so here you've got presence, and then you try to put life in it, and it just doesn't work. So the reason why we say, break down that duality, bring the work into your life to avoid those crashes.
If you wanted to sign up, you could do a 30 days one. You could do a 30 days one, and then I'm going to add a thought here. I know you wanted to go into that, and we didn't go into that.
We do it another day or whatever.
Can I get into this? So one thing that they say, what I mean by deep Advaita is my term from this morning. Somehow there are some every teaching has a map, and so we are using the map until we verify the territory, and so map and the territory is different. But in the non-dual direct path map, they say, okay, there's a witnessing, and then there is a realization that I am not the phenomena, I am the presence, which actually is not affected by phenomena. The phenomena comes and goes. Okay, this is step one. They say now step two, what needs to happen is to realize that this presence, which is aware of phenomena, is not limited. It's not personal. It's not personal. It's not a separate personal presence. And it is universal, which is a big, chubby, yummy word, meaning that, hey, it's not dependent on my nervous system. That's what they are saying, that basically we need to verify that this consciousness is not depending on the brain, is not dependent on the nervous system. It is actually indestructible, eternal, and it is actually not, it's not that there are 7-8 billion separate little consciousnesses on the planet. It's more like there's one consciousness that is conscious for all the body minds. That's what they are saying. So they are saying that if one has only the first step, I'm the witness, but without the second one, you can't have peace, because you always have fear and lack, the sense something is missing. So Francis and other teachers, they say, somehow you need to verify that this consciousness, which is aware right now, is not limited. Or at least to verify that I believed all my life that this consciousness is limited, to verify that I absolutely have no evidence for this belief. And so to get to this point, like, okay, I have no evidence that this consciousness is limited and will die, was born. So I reach a genuine 100% place of not knowing. You know, they talk about not knowing. So I'll just tell you some more a little bit. And often Francis says when people come to him, or this is not just Francis, this is from the tradition. They ask him, okay, well, I have this pattern, I have this problem, I have this. Also in this non-duality teaching, they say that they define ego as the sense of separation. It's a thought or a feeling of being a separate wave. And that could be, you know, I'm not good enough, I'm unworthy, I'm afraid to die, I'm bad, I have to hide. So all of these deficiency stories, they hide a sense of separate me. Okay, so they are saying somehow people come to the teaching and Francis will say, well, where would your suffering be if you would have verified that this consciousness is universal? You wouldn't have it anymore. So Francis and other people, they are saying, don't go about processing little shit. Go to the main thing. Verify that consciousness is universal, immortal, and timeless, and unlimited. And so in that, you'll take care of all your problems wholesale. And now, for me, this didn't quite work. And I needed to do individual KI and this or that. But I'm still interested. I believe, yeah, it's an important part of the stage, and you perhaps probably have verified that. You had some, that the presence is not Scott Kiloby's unique presence, and that actually it is what they call it is God's presence that's not going to die. And so the universality of that which is hearing these words. And so I want to talk about this, and also I have a sense that we can use KI to go towards verifying that. But also, can I ask you, so did you kind of verify or had some intuitive knowingness about it's not the little Scott Kiloby special presence?
Yes, it felt like I am that. Like whatever I saw was me, not Scott. No separation anywhere. And at the same point in time, the Scott character was like this very vague memory trail. It wasn't even me. It was just like this thing. And I saw
the
clearly.
timeline,
The line was right there. And I laughed because I was like, oh my God, he's been trying to do this, and that, and the other, and for naught, because I am this, like just seeing that like that. And then after that is when I learned about the body and how a little thing, a little shit creates this splinter in consciousness for people, that it's no small thing actually. So when the teachings are saying, don't bother with the little shit, that goes against my experience, because those little shits are the openings, like sometimes to that. I actually agree with it though. Like, don't be concerned with a lot of the little shit because you are the awareness, but there's just certain things. If you do that, I mean, do I have to tell the story again about my anger repression to drive this point home? That just being awareness can lead to missing things. I don't know how. I keep saying that, but I've just seen it so many times now. It's not even theory. It's like I see it happening in people's lives now. That the I am awareness pointer in of itself does it, just like for you, it doesn't go far enough for people. Something else for some people, maybe many, they need something else.
Yes, I absolutely agree. But I want to aikido you out of this actually and bring you back to, do you have any sense of pointing how to verify that this awareness is not actually personal and limited.
Yes. Let's talk about limited.
Limited basically in space and time by the body.
Yeah.
By basically that it dies. Basically, Francis was saying that if you verify that this consciousness is immortal, where would your suffering be, bro?
Right.
So then, can we verify that?
Yes, of course, not at the expense of bypassing, but yes. So limitation would be any limiting thought, self-limiting thoughts, of sure. But there's also just the limitation of feeling separation. So if you close your eyes, for example, some of the limitation comes up with just a mental impression of a body, for example. Wherever you find limitation, you find mental impression, thought, words, or image, sensation. So just looking at that, wherever you find that. So it looks like, for example, the boundary of the body is a limitation. If you close your eyes, the outline of the body, until you start to investigate it and you see that's actually happening in awareness, and the awareness that it's happening in is not contained or limited in any way. The limitation is apparently just that image, or the image of being in the room, right? That's an impression happening in awareness. If you keep looking at that, whatever you find that's a limitation in space and time,
it's an object appearing in the borderless space.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. You do sometimes when you do guided awareness pointing, some of those pointers are to recognize there is awareness, but also you are, yeah, they are doing the same, sometimes doing physical exercises, like call it body yoga, but not usual yoga, but to see to verify the borderlessness and the absence of separation and this or that. Yeah.
And with eyes open, noticing the seamlessness of reality. So the mind very subtly names everything, even if you can't hear it. So it already thinks carpet, chair, wall. So just exploring the reality without the labels, seeing everything bleeds into everything else.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that maybe we should develop a new leg of the KI, you know, like you have Nimol of to kind of go into like the deep KI or something. Yeah, that's what they are saying, that the separation is imagined.
Yeah, and also time is thought. I mean, you've heard that before, but you have no experience of time without a thought. So once you know that, when you're experiencing time, that's also mental impression, just seeing that. And then what is that? The space is not time. There's no time. It's timeless. So that's the realization comes in that way for some people, seeing your thoughts are giving you all that.
You know what hits me now is that a lot of my friends who are going to this, let's say, like deep investigation that's very lofty and useful, they are doing that, and they're having this borderlessness and understanding that the mountain and my body is made of the same stuff, and anyway, stuff like that. Yet unprocessed trauma, unprocessed deficiency story, repression, that is going to be like a ballast. Like holding back. So I have a sense that because all of those, I need to hide, there's something wrong with me, I'm unworthy, I am not safe. All the common element is this I, which is actually the sense of separation. It is the core of the ego. Basically, deficiency story, and the deficiency story connected to trauma, and every sense of I connected with subconscious unprocessed stuff. That's the very core of me, which is the imagined thing. So I got the hit yesterday talking to someone. By actually processing this a lot, there will be more chances for me to see, oh wow, the tree is me. Oh wow, there's all seamless, you know, rather than forcing it through understanding,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So it clears the filter,
Yeah.
and then it's more like, oh wow, yeah, they were right. Because I notice myself, I do more this KI work, and I'm more like more effortlessly what Muhammad said. I want to tattoo this somewhere.
Yeah.
Wherever your eye falls, there is the face of Allah.
Yes.
I like that.
You know, efforting, so you're falling into it naturally.
Yes.
And if you watch people who are efforting to be present, to me, sometimes they're trying to override some of these things that you mentioned, like the trauma in the body or the repression, trying to override.
I did it. Yeah.
And then it comes back because you really can't override it, or it plays into it. You can't dismiss
it's like a bungee cord. I'm trying to bungee myself into transcendence. And then like, tobacco, trauma.
Right. And so, but we laugh, but like, this is why people keep going back, because they keep going, let me hear the pure truth here. Let's hear the pure. And then again, efforting because something isn't processed. So maybe somebody heard that out there and would prefer not to try to effort so much, and which maybe you just might want to process a few things that allow the effortless abiding.
Yes. Yeah. So, you know, I hope this thing to actually, I that's my idea. I somehow am busy, but I think there's a way to use reverse inquiry, utility inquiry, to move to continue this exploration that consciousness that I am is not separate.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, I don't know, like I don't know if it's for this meeting or for other meeting, or to start the ball on this, to use KI on this so-called deep Advaita.
Yeah.
To at least stir objections. Like go ahead.
Well, it's kind of popping it on me like, I don't need anything prepared. But what if we played with like just this question, like, there's no separation for a second. It's maybe too general or too abstract to get won't get an objection, but see if there's evidence.
Things like this, I clearly see that there is no separation right now.
Oh, well, that won't work.
Inquiry.
Yeah.
What?
But imagine that it wasn't your experience. Like, so if it wasn't your experience, it would be like, yeah, there is either a boundary or a border or a story about you.
I think that will work for me if I do this. Okay, I clearly see there's no separation. It's interesting. I think this can deepen it, because like I look outside, there's the tree. Yeah, but there's the tree there. And also I noticed something in my belly too, some sensation in my belly. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I know that's true, but I think this actually helps to bring out the old ways of perceiving the world.
Yeah, totally. Can you look at the tree?
Okay.
So it sounds like
this tree, and actually it's interesting that the term tree.
Yes.
Okay, you guide me. Yeah.
That's where I was going. Just seeing the term tree, that overlays on that. Let that be.
So it's this concept. It's just it's a shapes and light, which is also a concept.
Yeah. Right. So
like, just, you know, I'm just so that people see. Okay. Yes. So
there may be a lot of concepts there. Just looking and what comes up. As you say, that tree isn't separate. Just say that, and then maybe the mind goes, yes, it is. And
yeah, this tree is not separate from
anything.
This tree is not separate from anything.
Let the objection come if it's there.
No, that lens is true. I feel stuff in my belly though.
Yeah. So come feel that, just being aware of that. It's happening in that same space, that sensation. Just like the tree, are there concepts overlaid on that? So
it's interesting for that is straight up KI. I mean, what does that mean
yeah,
about me? What is that? It's some
story of self. Like, what does it mean about me? You probably get a thought there.
yeah, it's crazy. It's like I'm alone.
Yeah.
The thought
Right.
I'm alone, which is, you
Right.
know, for the viewers, this is my core deficiency story.
Yeah, but so you're like the tree. So just as the word tree came up, here the thought I'm alone comes up to sort of pretend to be you for a moment. So you just let that be. Let that be.
Yeah, and the thought I'm alone is really like it's not just sensation. It's just sensation.
Oh, here, then this is a chance for us to do this. Is that is a sensation or emotion, or how would you describe that?
It's an energy sensation. Maybe it needs to be more unpacked. So it's more like sensation, energy in my belly.
So try this. This sensation is not mine.
This sensation is not mine.
Yeah, so see what pops up there.
This is almost like a koan. It's like huh?
Yeah,
like a dog, like this.
right. But you could also hear an objection like, yeah, it is. If that's there. If it's not, it's not.
It's interesting that there's the non-dual pointer I can use as a reverse inquiry.
Yeah,
There is no me in this sensation.
there you go.
It's interesting because I unprocessed stuff that feels like me
Mm-hmm.
in the sensation.
So you're seeing
There's
some
no
thoughts.
me. There's no me in this sensation.
Yeah. Let the viewers know whether you see any thoughts there, or is it just quiet?
It's quiet. It's almost like yeah. There's no.
Is there still, to use the teachers, like what they say is there still some doubt about that though, like lingering somewhere, or is it just clear?
It comes clear. The next pointer was like there's no me in the sensation. The sensation appears to awareness. That
Right,
appears as yes, that's true.
right.
Still sensation, which
Yeah.
is okay.
So
The
just
motorcycle traffic. It's interesting that the motorcycle sound, which is a concept, that's what they say, appears in the same space where the sensation that wants to be me appears.
yes, right.
You have some.
Yeah. Well, so here with the sensation, if you feel into it just for the heck of it, if you say, I'm not alone, what comes up, if anything?
I'm not alone. Yeah, it is. It's like ooh, percolating,
Mm-hmm.
and some thoughts of girlfriend wanting love
Yeah.
pop up a little bit.
Okay, but let's don't inquire. I want to make the point that you can see there. That's an example of how bypassing happens in non-duality. So
Yeah,
you can see, oh, the sensation is just a sensation arising to awareness, arising to no one. Oh, that's nice. And then come to find out, there's programming in there, like I am.
I
So without
am
process,
alone.
you might
I
miss it.
want love. I
Yeah.
want love. And let's go. You wanted to do this I investigation. I am angry.
Oh, yeah.
I
So
want love.
Yeah, but I don't want to do that on that.
Okay.
Let me
Okay.
explain something first. We're going to go into that, which is, so we kept seeing a few people doing KI, stirring things up. Emotions would come up, old, repressed emotions, stuff, right? So anger comes up, fear, KI stirs it up. And then taking a kind of a play from the book that we've seen in the last 10, 15 years that are saying, don't bypass the body, come down and let that feeling be as it is. What I found is that sometimes they're bypassing a thought that says, I am angry. And so therefore the energy stays around. Therefore it accumulates and can even lead to overwhelm where the system shuts down because they're still identifying subtly with the thought, I am angry, but they don't see it. So that really put to rest something for me, because through the years, I was even encouraging people, look, if you're feeling anger, feel it. And a lot of times it does work. You can just feel it, see it. It's just, that's what it is. But for certain people, it was arising and it just stuck there. Just stuck there. And of course, if you hear a non-duality, they might say, well, just let it be. That's fine. But if you keep doing that, you compound your system with work or anything else, overwhelm, shut down, whatever. So we've been teaching people to, when you feel an emotion, don't bypass that thought that might be there. So you just say, like, for example, I'm not angry, reverse inquiry. Yes, I am angry. So the I comes in to try to own. You see that in that moment, unconsciously, the I is trying to own that feeling. And so that gets missed. But as soon as you start looking at the I thought, I am angry, and just stay with it, it's like something can shift there because the identification is seen, subtle stuff.
So you are saying that, okay, the person has strong emotions or maybe repressed emotions. They are coming up, repressed or not. They are stirred. And then, they are feeling, but bring awareness to the me thought, as Ramana said. I am angry. I am alone. I have to control this sadness.
Right. Now, so that's true. Yes.
To witness the thought. Yeah.
So of course, any of those thoughts, right? I am, I have to control whatever. But where I'm talking, yes, but what I'm really talking about here, this is really juicy. You hear it. Like, so an emotion comes up, it's not in a vacuum. So it comes up, and then there's a person here who owns that. And then on top of that is all the content, like, I have to control, I'm not safe.
Yes.
Here, I talk about something below all the content is the first arising of the feeling, is the first a thought that says it's mine, I own it. That one, especially, because I think that's where people are getting dysregulated. But yes, you could look at obviously any I thought, but I'm focusing on that.
Wow. I remembered when we had some deep special session in my car, and I was really like that there was some repression undone, and there was full blast. The non-duality was thrown out of the window. And then there was this, I am alone. I have to do this. I this, I that, and there was so strong and so strong and so believed. And then I think you were aware that there is so much flooding of feeling that you allowed it. But what was very helpful, you were mirroring the I thought back to me. And after about 20 minutes, I could hear you. You were saying, can you watch this thought? I have to. And after some point, the Buddha nature came back online. And I was like, what the fuck? This is just the voice in my head, man. It's so, okay. But what you are saying here, to investigate the I thought on behalf, which is at the core of all of these things. It's interesting. That's what some of this non-dual, some non-dual deep things they say, actually Rupert and Muji, I know that, anyway, okay, that, hey, who is this one that is suffering? They are trying to, okay, don't be so involved in the suffering or the feeling. Who's the one? Can you find the one who is depressed,
right,
or that is angry? And yeah, the idea is that I think Rupert was saying that if you're really interested in that, you will find that this is a ghost in the system, actually, and you are suffering on behalf of a non-existent I. But I think if this investigation is done not also welcoming the actually content and really getting into the whole thing, rather than using that, oh, the I is not real, I'm removing myself from the situation, that doesn't go so well. But yeah, I see where you are pointing.
Here, it's really hard to articulate why I'm focusing on it like this. I can see that.
Keep going with it.
Yeah. Okay. So we're stirring up a lot of content in KI, like I'm not safe, I have to control, I have to
A lot of me content, basically, the deepest ego stuff. It's stirred in awareness, yeah.
And part of that is because so many of us have not been feeling like, so we're pulling this stuff up so we can finally feel what we've been trying to avoid. So there's that. KI is no more, don't bypass, feel, allow this stuff. But then what happens, I'm saying, is, so you're looking at the I thought every time it comes up, obviously. But what I'm saying is, at a more fundamental level, you're trudging up all these emotions, but not seeing this one particular thought that keeps it, the emotion there. So just pulling that out first. Of course, you can look at every I thought, but when you, for me, if I make my practice all about looking for the I thought, I could easily bypass emotions in that, because if I want to see that I'm not the one that's depressed, okay, I see that, but is there unprocessed emotion still? See, so I need to process the emotion and do the non-dual thing, but I don't want to do the non-dual thing in a way that avoids the emotion. So here, we're not avoiding, we're saying, I'm not angry. Yes, the feeling is there, not bypassing. And then while it's not there, saying there's an I thought on there, because
that says, I am angry.
It's built, like, it's like, I'm depressed, so I have to control him, whatever I'm saying.
Okay, so you have it. Now it's here. You're saying, okay, no, I'm not angry. No. Okay, translate. I am angry.
Yeah.
Okay, now what?
Well, here's what I see happening. Okay, let me explain it a different way. At the beginning, there were the gurus that said just neti, essentially just see that you're not this thought, that thought, and that. Okay, and they're pretty much ignoring the body. People, they caught on to that through the hundreds of years. And somatic experiencing came up, and people said, don't bypass, don't use neti to bypass. So now everybody's coming down into the body, a lot of people are, and missing the mind. So it's like, you miss the body, missing the mind. So what I'm saying is, you could bypass either one. Catch this now. See?
Yeah, because the Ramana was like, there's the me thought and the me feeling, and the me is like, he was having this metaphor. It's like a bead, like a bead. How do you call that? Chain or a bead thread, a thread of beads, where all the beads are. I'm unworthy. I am sad. I'm better than you guys. I can't express. Either it's a thought or a feeling. The thread that keeps them all together, all the little, how do you call this, beads, is the I thought or feeling, the me thought. That we need to witness from awareness. And I like it that you bring the importance of witnessing both. Because I was, as I got into more somatic psychotherapy, and as I got into non-duality, I got the message that, hey, man, this is the story in your head. Don't stay at the level of the story, which was true. Was staying at the level of the story, but missing the somatic content in the body. So I was like, hey, okay, this is a story, but what's happening in your body, man? Okay, I have this feeling here. Okay, can you welcome it? Can you allow it? Can you observe it? But then I started to, I guess what you call, go to dent too much into the somatic witnessing, but now ignoring the thought content in there.
Yes.
So it's like got to you, I rescued that back now. I'm like, okay, there's the here, feel it, witness it, let it be. But some contractions, they hide stuff. So, okay, what does it say? What does it mean? So it's much more complete now.
Yes. Because you can, just going back to this other issue, you can inquire on like the one who's unsafe and see, you know, okay, that's just a thought. But you're trudging up emotion at the same time. So are you looking for the thought that says there's an I here who's up is angry? That's all that I'm saying with this.
Yeah.
Yes, you could I thought with everything or anything. There seems to be something though at this level where the arising of the feeling and the rising of the first identification with that feeling, I am angry.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm focused. Because it does three things. One, it avoids bypassing, because when you say I'm not angry, the feeling can come up. We're not avoiding it. Now we're also not avoiding bypassing the thoughts. So we take care of bypassing. We also take care of nervous system regulation, because if I'm stirring a bunch of stuff up and I'm identified with the feelings, but I don't see that, that energy compounds can overwhelm the system. Now I have to leave KI because, you know, the other thing is it helps you come out of repression, because if you're shut down, like with anger, for example, to shut down in a dispute, if you just start with what I'm not angry, now you're acknowledging something that you weren't acknowledging before. So then that helps you come out of repression. I am angry, so that the feeling can come up out of repression. Now that the feeling is up, you don't want to just believe now that you're a person who's angry. You want to feel this, move on. So see the thought that says I'm angry there. That's all.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that the teachings, the Dharma gets upgraded.
Dharma upgrade, yeah.
The Dharma, yeah, the teaching gets upgraded, and it all now fits in together. Yeah. All right. Well, I'll bookmark for other time, or for us or me. I really want to develop, to use what you already developed as reverse inquiry, utility inquiry, to and basically use these non-dual pointers that says, oh, all there is love. Love is what I am. What I am is already whole and complete. What I am is timeless and immortal. There is no separation, whatever. Use all of those instead of taking them as a yummy, hopeful belief.
Yes. Cool. Can I say something real quick about that?
Yeah.
So when you deliver those things as pointers, like when you say, I'm already awake, or awakeness is already here, the thing is stuff can be hidden there. Like, because you're affirming something. So it's like, okay. But with reverse inquiry, the stuff doesn't hide. When you say, I'm already awake, it's like, whatever would have hidden had you set it as a pointer doesn't hide now. And it comes up and that. Be with the objective.
I guess this works if we make a clear distinction, especially for people who are not familiar with reverse inquiry, but even with us in the KI community, hey, okay, we use these pointers as a reverse inquiry. So just say it, don't believe it, don't think about it, ignore that Jesus said it, whatever, Lao Tzu. See what comes up, what ripples come up.
Right.
Or, you know, what I am, I used to do this even before I met you. It will stir things, but I didn't have the tool to follow them up. Like, what I am, what I really am, is already whole and complete, needing nothing.
Right.
And usually it will bring something in my stomach. And then we know what that is about. Yeah.
So I had something else on that. Hold on. Well, doubt, you know, it's like people get pointed to the non-dual, and then there's just some sort of lingering doubt. They don't even know why sometimes. Like, so when you do rejection or reverse inquiry, the doubt's more likely to arise. That's the point.
Yes.
Yeah. So you want the doubt to arise, because if you sit there and take it as a pointer and say, I'm already awake, it's like, yeah, I think so. Yeah. You don't know why. It's just some lingering sensation in the stomach or something. But then when you make reverse inquiry, it just, there it is. Now you can see it. And then when you do it that way, you fall into the recognition. You're not forcing yourself into it through the trying to override the doubt. Doubts are all rising. You fall right into that recognition. More.
Yeah, it stirs, actually, it's going to stir what is hidden that is not aligned with this understanding. Yeah.
Right.
I think that's a good idea to use this. Is one of the deepest things that's repressed is fear of death. In our whole society, especially in America, you don't see dead bodies. You know, somebody dies, they are a dead body for like a few minutes, 2 hours, but then they come and nobody sees anything. In other cultures, you know, a client told me, like, man, I went to a funeral, there was an open casket, man, that was intense. I was like, yeah, in India it's all the time, dead bodies on the street or whatever. Anyway, death is hidden. Also, old people are hidden. Everybody is young and beautiful. And so I think Jed McKenna was saying that it's one of the deepest hidden things, and we have systems to beliefs and ego structure to not think about it. I think Jed McKenna was saying that, well, okay, we deal with death by, first of all, putting it far out there into the future. Well, it's going to be later, so don't worry about it. This is one. Second was that, well, okay, distraction. I'm just distraction with getting whatever, or this just distracted, and society supports that. Third is that I now believe a religious or spiritual belief according to which I will be okay. I don't know, there's karma, there is the kingdom of heaven, there's something. So I still don't face it. And he was suggesting this, like, to have remembrance in different pathways. They have this Tibetan, or to have remembrance of death in the back pocket and to just pull it, you know. So anyway, it will be interesting to do some KI to, you know, I'm not afraid of death.
Right.
I know this presence cannot die. As
Right.
reverse inquiry.
Right.
I bet it will come a little like, you know,
fear.
Yeah, or going through a cemetery, or, you know, thinking of dead relatives.
Right. Well, that might be different than if you just said, or someone said to you, look to see that there's no self there to die, or that that's just a thought, because those lingering doubts and scary things are under that, you know.
Yeah, and the fear connected to death, it's also core of the ego. It's because of, there's still subconsciously I'm believing that the presence is the body. So when the brain dies, this ends. Fear of disappearance.
That's why I think people become interested in not only reincarnation or heaven, but also, whether it's true or not, that's why I think some people become interested in the idea that awareness survives death. You know, whether or not it's true, it really helps for the psychology of the fear of death. All these things. So for me, I don't buy into, I don't know whether there's life or any of those big notions. I don't go there, because I know the psychology of it. I understand the fear under it. I don't want to hang on to a belief that's just coddling me. I want to be open.
And like Francis, when some people often come to Francis with about death and what's on the other side and all of that, and he never gets into it. And she says, well, I guess this is not an urgent question. So all right, Scott, I think that was super juicy, and so thank you. Unless you want, if something else you want to say here,
only that, of course,
announcements or anything.
Well, the members area. So this is where we're doing all this work. If you're watching these videos, go to the pinned post at my Scott Kiloby Facebook page. There's the link to the members area. So we meet with people regularly in groups. This work's going on time. Or you go to kiloby.com, go to membership at the top, scroll down to the members area, and you can get in that way.
Yeah. I will put below this video you guys are watching, I will put these links. So that's indeed an awesome experiential community where like-minded, really investigating this every day. I really appreciate it, and it's very extremely lots of resources and people and sharing, people being very real. It's not on Facebook, it's confidential, and it's extremely cheap, almost like nothing. So yeah, I really appreciate it. All right, so thank you everybody. May this help you and support us all. Bye bye, Scott.
Bye bye.